Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be doing the infantry tier list. We've done cavalry tier list, we've done an archer tier list, so it only makes sense to go for the infantry tier list. So here I am presenting it today. And before we hop into the video, I have to be honest, I actually didn't know a lot of the tech trees and what the civs had or were missing for infantry. So I actually had to do a lot of research for this one and go into the tech tree and see what they had and what they were missing, like I said. But I think, finally I actually have a pretty good list here that I'm confident with, and I had a little bit of trouble stacking up the different factors, but I think I managed pretty well here. So as usual, I've got some criteria. So the infantry will be in regards to the militia line, the halberdier line, the upgrades you get for those guys in the barracks, and also the upgrades in the blacksmith. And then I'm also going to be talking about any unique unit infantry or bonus for infantry. Like, for example, the Malians, extra pierce armor, that's obviously going to weigh in and factor in. And as far as, what constitutes a good infantry civ in game, I'm going to also look at, and this is to maybe a minor point, how important infantry is for that civilization. And how often do you see them going for infantry? So, like, is it one of their main strategies, or is it just like a side option if need be? All right, so I think that's a good amount of criteria. Let's hop into the list here and see what we have. So starting off here with the Aztecs. By the way, here I don't have Sicilians and Burgundians, but I will include them in my tier list hopefully here, and I have them included. So real quick, if you guys know someone that can add Burgundians and Sicilians in here and then just link it to me, that'll be much appreciated. But yeah, let's hop into it. Aztecs. Aztecs are a Meso civilization, and they're going to go right up to A tier right away. Now, the reason I mentioned that they're Meso civilization is that they get access to the Eagle Warrior. I feel obliged to give extra points to civs with Eagle Warriors, to the Meso civs and Incas, because of the fact that it's an infantry and it's also one of the most meta infantries in the game. It's one of the most often used. It's one of the most popular infantry units in the game. And Aztecs have more than just that. So they've got the Eagle Warrior, but they also have the Garland Warriors, which gives infantry +4 attack. They're missing Halberdier, but 4+8 pikemen are no joke. They also get the faster production for their barracks, of course, or for all the military buildings. And they also get fully upgraded champions, and in rare cases, a Jaguar Warrior as well. So combine all that, champions, Aztec Eagles, the pikemen with extra attack, the Jaguar Warriors, and you're looking at a very solid infantry civilization. And we do see this civ going for infantry quite often. So definitely an A tier civ. Couldn't justify S tier, and I'll tell you why later. Next up, we've got the Berbers. And Berbers are going to be an average Joe. They're going to go right into the C tier. And you notice for this one, I don't actually have an F tier. And that is because there's simply no civilization that's bad on infantry altogether. Like, that's like terrible, like unusable. Either a civ will have Halberdier or will have Champion. We're missing some upgrades, but having others. And I felt like there's always a use for infantry, either Champ or Halberdier, even if they're missing some upgrades in some situations. So I couldn't justify an F tier for this one, but Berbers for a C tier, makes sense. They get full upgrades on their barracks and on their blacksmith for the infantry. So it's a generic infantry civ pretty much, and they're missing Halberdier. So seems pretty fair. C tier looks good. You use them when you really need them. You use infantry when you really need them, pretty much. But that's not your go-to unit. Next up, we've got the Britons. And Britons is going to make its way straight into the B tier here. Britons actually have pretty perfect infantry. They get Halberdier Champion, fully upgraded. They got every upgrade from the barracks, arson, supplies, and squires. And so I figured, why not? B tier makes perfect sense for them. And yeah, it's a pretty easy decision for me. Next up is the Bulgarians. And Bulgarians are going to take a seat right next to the Aztecs here. Now, not Burgundians, Bulgarians. We're going to go to Burgundians next. Bulgarians actually have a few bonuses that are worth mentioning. So they're lacking champion, but they get free militia line upgrade all the way up to 200 swordsmen, and they also get a unique tech that gives them 5 melee armor, which is absolutely insane. That also applies to the halberdier, so you can have halberdier and 200 swordsmen with amazing melee armor, which I think combining that with the free upgrades of the militia line make for a really good infantry civilization altogether. Next up, we've got the Burgundians, and this is going to be just a verbal thing, which is cool because the people who skipped to the end of the video just to see my tier list will not know where I put the Burgundians, so they have to listen and watch the whole thing, which I'm happy about. Yes, more view time, let's go. But for the Burgundians, I'm going to go ahead and put them right at the B tier. Okay, so Burgundians, it's kind of like Bulgarians, B tier, but no, A tier for Bulgarians and B tier for Burgundians. It's similar to Britons. They have full upgrades on infantry, and they also get the Flemish Revolution, which kind of counts as infantry. So it makes sense to put them at B tier. Can't commit to A tier just because of the Flemish Revolution, but you have that there. Next up, we've got the Burmese, and Burmese are going to go to A tier. So we've got a lot of A tier civs, not a lot of S tier civs. We'll talk about that, like I said, a bit later. Fan favorite civ coming up. Burmese, really, really strong infantry, full barracks, full blacksmith. You even get extra attack per age on your infantry, and that's 13 plus 7 for your champions in late game, which is actually very, very strong. And their infantry is comparable with the Aztecs, and maybe even slightly better because you get the halberdier actually, not just the pikeman. So Burmese infantry is very, very strong, and it's one of their go-to options, I would say, in some cases when you're not playing with cavalry. Next up, we've got the Byzantines, and Byzantines are a bit of a weird one. They're going to go to C tier. Basically, they get champions and halberdiers, but they're missing blast furnace from the blacksmith. However, they do get the halberdier that are cheaper. So actually, you could make an argument for B tier for Byzantine. I'm not sure if they have arson and supplies. I don't know if... See, this is the problem. I did check the tech tree, but I often do forget these things. I think I'm going to push Byzantines to B tier because of the cheaper halbs. I'm pretty sure they have supplies for the champions, but even if they don't, that's still champions with full armor, only missing blast furnace. Definitely a solid infantry civilization, and you go into hubs quite often with Byzantine. So B tier, I'm happy with that. I'm gonna quickly move it on my notepad here just to visualize things. Okay, sorry about that. Make sure everything's good. Looks like we're fine. All right. Next up here, we've got the Celts, and Celts are a pretty interesting infantry civilization. I know I have to question where I put them here. I put them as B tier for my list. I think a lot of people would hate me for that. I'm still thinking about it here. I could bump them to A tier. Guys, I'm going to bump them to A tier. Actually, let me talk about my thought process on Celts. So Celts have full upgrades infantry. They also get the Woad Raider, which is a unique unit that's kind of like a faster infantry and has pretty solid attack. It reminds me a bit of a champion, but a little bit more HP, and you need a castle to make it. So Celts infantry, they move faster, but they miss squire, so overall you get a 5% faster increase in late game. How do I feel about this civilization? I don't think the faster movement speed is enough to put them higher than B tier. That's the thing. Like that's kind of what I'm debating. But they also get full upgrades on their units. So you know what? I'm gonna go to A tier, but I think it's one of the weaker A tier civs, to be honest. I think all of these three are better infantry civs than Celts. As weird as that sounds, I would definitely say that that's the case. But we'll put them as A tier for now. Next up, we've got the Chinese. And Chinese, because of their eco bonus, will go to S tier. Really, really strong. I'm just kidding. Don't close the video, please. I'm just kidding. Chinese are really good, but their infantry is not that great. They're going to go to C tier here. They're missing supplies. They get champion half fully upgraded, but I don't think it's more than a C tier. Like, for me, not enough bonuses there to justify higher than C tier. Yeah, like I said, I think Byzantine with the cheaper halb is actually better than Chinese infantry. Because that cheaper halb is way more relevant than having blast furnace available to you. So that's kind of how I'd argue there. And again, I'm assuming Byzantine have supplies. If Byzantine don't have supplies, maybe I'll drop them down as well to C tier. Next up, we've got the Cumins, and that's going to be an easy C tier for me. Cumins, kind of like Chinese, they're missing the last armor upgrade on their infantry, I believe. And I think they're missing supplies as well. But again, I'm not sure about these techs, guys. Excuse me. My infantry knowledge is not very good, but Cumins, again, they're not going to be one of the more solid infantry civs. So you only go infantry when you really need it. And actually thinking about it, I think you do get the last armor as well. So I think you're just missing supplies with Cumins. But still, nonetheless, C tier, generic infantry pretty much. Next up is Ethiopians, and Ethiopians are going to go to the D tier. You don't get champion. I believe you're missing supplies as well, so all you really have is halberdier and 200 swordsman, full upgrades, so it's not bad, but actually no, they do get the Shotel warrior though. Ooh, Shotel warrior is gonna bump them to C tier, I think. Yeah, Shotel bumps them to C tier because Shotel warrior is decent. It kind of counters eagles, and it's a pretty strong glass cannon type infantry that could come up from time to time. So that plus free pikeman upgrade, we'll put them in C tier. I'm fine with that. Next up, we've got the Franks, and Franks are going to find their way, as a bit of a tongue twister. They're going to find their way over in the B tier. Full upgrades on champions and halberdiers, and they also get the throwing axemen from the castle. So it's a very, very strong infantry civilization, and I would say when you're not going for cavalry, you're going for infantry with Franks most of the time. Okay, the bread and butter, the golden standard, the Goths, S tier. And I thought about it. I was like, do I put other civs with Goths in the S tier? I'm going to spoil it right now. I decided not to put anything in the S tier with the Goths. I think they're unmatched. You have to go infantry with Goths if you want to make use of their best bonus, if you want to make use of their unique unit, which is a very, very strong unit, and if you want to have pretty much the majority of your bonuses that you have available to you, you have to go infantry. And not only that, it's not like their only option, but it's their best option by far, and it's better than a lot of these other civilizations. There's only a few civs that Goths can't really go infantry against, and they have some bad matchups, but overall, Goth infantry are best across so many different matchups. The Husk Roll lets you go for really, really big plays in the castlage against archer civs. The cheaper pikeman and halberdier and champion is really good and flexible. It lets you have, it lets you tech into those units in castlage, and it lets you spam in late castle or imp. And then combining like the Husk Roll, the champion, and the halbs, it's just such a strong composition. And obviously, you're missing the last armor, but with the spam that you have with Goths, I think it's a no-brainer. This civ is what comes to mind when you think of infantry, and definitely an S tier. Yeah, and it's the only S tier civ I have on my list. So shout out to the Goths. I know it's a fan favorite. My brother used to like it actually. We used to play back in the day. It was accounted to the Britons, which is one of my other brothers' favorite civs. So kind of cheap to use Huskers for longbows, but that guy was hiding with longbows behind walls. So I'm sure they both had their own cheapy strategies going. I clapped them all with Huns like a year later, don't worry. Next up, we've got the Huns, speaking of which. The Huns are going to be coming in strong at... I don't have it on my notepad. Oh my god. Oh no, I do. D tier. Huns suck with infantry. No supplies, 200 swordsmen, you're missing last armor. So really your only play with Huns is like mediocre halberdier. That's pretty much the only time you go infantry. So definitely a D tier civ for me. Next up, we've got the Incas, and Incas are going to go for the B tier. You get champions, halb, full upgrades, and eagles. So I thought about giving them A tier, but honestly, I think their eagles are the weakest of the bunch of the meso civs, so I didn't consider A tier for them. And I'm happy with B tier, even though it's maybe one of the stronger B tier civs, because like I said, the Eagle Warrior is just a very strong unit in the meta. Next up is the Indians, and Indians are going to find themselves at a nice little C tier. Reasonable tech tree for the infantry, but I believe you're missing the last armor upgrade for the infantry. But you do get halb and champion, so it's not bad, but it's not amazing. Next up, we've got the Italians, and Italians are going to find themselves at a pretty cool C tier as well. Missing halberdier, but you get the condottiero and you get full upgrades on champions in the blacksmith. So seems like a reasonable C tier civ to me. And I'm going to hydrate here for a second. All right, sorry about that. Next up, we've got the Japanese, and Japanese, shout out to my boy Spirit of the Law, is going to go straight into the A tier. Japanese get amazing bonuses for the infantry. They attack faster, they get full upgrades, champions, halbs, and the attacking faster is one of the best infantry bonuses in the game, and you get it from straight in the feudal age, so seems like a reasonable A tier civ to me. Next up, we've got the Khmer, and Khmer are going to find themselves, unfortunately, in the D tier, missing champion, and I think they're missing the last armor on infantry as well from the blacksmith, so it's kind of similar to the Huns in that regard, so it's going to be a D tier civ for me. Again, you only go halbs if you really need it with the civ. Next up is the Koreans. The Koreans are going to find themselves at C tier, missing blast furnace, but you get full upgrades otherwise, I believe, on champions and halbs. I'm not sure about supplies, but I know you do get a discount on the wood for halbs, so seems like a pretty sick C tier civ to me. Not enough to push it to B tier though. And actually, by that token, I'm gonna put Byzantine back, because if I'm not putting Koreans forward, I can't put Byzantine forward. Although they do get a discount food and wood for the halbs. Guys, I'm so conflicted. I'll keep them. I'll keep them in B tier, no problem. Next up is the Lithuanians, and Lithuanians are gonna find themselves at a pretty reasonable C tier here. Missing the last armor on the infantry, which is a big theme for the C tier civs, but you do get champion and halb, and your halb does get extra armor from the unique tech, so I did include that, but it wasn't enough to put them to that B tier. Next up is the Magyars, and the Magyars, Lithuanian halb do move faster as well, but again, all that included, not enough for B tier in my opinion. Magyars is up next, and Magyars is going to find themselves, unfortunately, in D tier. You're missing supplies. I think you're missing squires as well, which is such a weird upgrade to be missing. And you're missing the last armor upgrade. I couldn't justify putting the civ higher than D tier for that reason. So even though you get champs and halbs, it's just some weak infantry overall. Next up is the Malay, and Malay are going to find themselves at a B tier. Before you get mad at me and be like, but they don't cost gold. I know they don't cost gold, but a Hussar doesn't cost gold, and a Hussar will kick your 200 swordsman's ass any day of the week. Let's go, Team Hussar. Okay, I'm just kidding. I don't care about them that much. But yo, Malay They're pretty solid. They get 200 swordsmen, obviously, and halberdier full upgrades from the blacksmith, and they also get the unique tech that removes the gold cost for the 200 swordsmen. That's not bad. It's a solid option for late game, but it really is only that, a late game option. So I felt like it wasn't enough to push them to A tier. And then, okay, you might argue they're Karambit Warrior, but the Karambit Warrior is kind of just like a mid-tier infantry unit. Like, it's good sometimes, it's not good other times. So I would say overall, it's a pretty above average infantry civ, but nothing too crazy for the Malay. Malians, let's see. Malians are going to find themselves again on B tier. Missing Blast Furnace is the reason I didn't put them A tier. They get extra pierce armor on their infantry, but they're missing halbs and they're missing Blast Furnace, so I couldn't put them higher than B tier. Although I will say that Malian infantry in some cases is the best infantry in the game. Actually, pierce armor can sometimes be the best bonus. I'll give you that much for the champions. For the champions. But I think overall it wasn't enough to put them higher than B tier, especially with the text they're missing. Next up, we've got the Mayans. I can sum up Mayans in one word. Scratch that, 2 words. Eagle Warrior. A tier, baby. 100 HP Eagle Warriors, very, very strong. Aside from that, you get full upgrades halberdier. You are missing champion, which is the biggest infantry weakness for Mayans, but I think overall, with all things considered, I have to put them in A tier. And you might be wondering, why did I not put Incas in A tier if they have the champions? The Mayan Eagle HP, 40 HP Eagles, the Mayan Eagle is one of the best infantry units in the game. So that combined with help is a composition in of itself. Incas don't get that luxury. You do get the Eagle Halb composition, but 60 HP Eagles is not the same as 100 HP Eagles. Even the extra armor the Incas get is not quite comparable to Eldorado Eagles. And for that reason, A tier for Mayan infantry, despite missing champions, I think that's pretty justified. Feel free to argue with me in the comments below and tell me that they're in archer civs, and then I'll come whoop your ass with some Eagles, and you can play archers with Mayans, no problem. Next up is Mongols. I'm talking about myself in my basement. Just let that sink in, and it's like one step to madness, I'm telling you. Anyway, Mongols were committed at this point. Mongols is going to go to C tier. So Mongols are missing supplies, and they're also missing halberdier. So they do get champion, and that's reasonable. They actually get the armor upgrade, so they get fully upgraded champion. But I couldn't really justify the no supplies and no halberdier to put them to B tier. So for me, C tier for Mongols makes a lot of sense. Next up is Persians. Persians are going to be D tier. They're actually missing 200 swordsmen. They have only long swords, which is kind of bad. But they do get halberdier full upgrades. So again, you can go halberd to Persians, that's fine. But infantry as a whole, I think is very weak. You can't go any infantry from the militia line in pretty much. So for me, that brings them all the way down to D tier. Could argue for C tier, but I'm good. I need to fill up my D tier, so I'm going to put them there. Portuguese is going to go straight to the B tier. Full upgrades on halbs and champions, and you also get a gold discount for the champions. So it's very reasonable. One of the better B tier civs, if you ask me. Next up is the Saracens, and we're going to continue along the mid-tier civs, but not quite B tier. It's going to be the C tier, unfortunately, for the Saracens. I believe you do get full blacksmith upgrades, but you're missing halberdier. So you have good champions, but halberdier is lacking, and therefore it's going to be a C tier for our Arabian fellas. Next up, we've got the Slavs. And Slavs are going to be one of the better infantry civs on the table, going straight to A tier, contesting S tier. Droshina is one of the best upgrades. It's absolutely on crack in the late game. Gives your infantry plus 5 damage around it. So you hit one unit. If there's 2 units around you, they take 5 damage, which I think is pretty crazy. And I think for that reason, Slavs winning most infantry fights in late game, if not all. But Droshina is just a late game tech. It's not enough to push them to S tier. I feel like Goths get way more bonuses for the barracks. But that being said, Slavs do get free supplies and full armor and attack from the blacksmith. So Slavs are a fantastic civilization. Could make an argument for S tier. I definitely see that. No questions asked. I just couldn't justify it myself. But I would say they're one of the better A tier civs. Next up, we've got the Spanish. And the Spanish are going to be a very cool C tier. Very cool C tier civ there for the Spanish. I mean, they get full upgrades from the blacksmith, they get champion, they get halberdier, but no bonuses, apart from that. So for me, C tier seems very reasonable there. Wait a minute, do Britons get any bonuses? Hold the phone. How am I judging this? I'm like kind of trolling here. I think by the token, Spanish should also be in B tier, because they also get no bonuses, but they get full infantry tech tree. Hold on, the Britons are getting some favoritism here. Spanish bumped up to B tier, baby. B tier for Spanish, I take it back. Solid civilization for infantry. And it's kind of like I mentioned for Franks, if you're not going cavalry with Spanish, you're probably going infantry. It's the only logical step. Next up is the Tatars here, and the Tatars kind of suck. They're going to go D tier. I'm missing champions, so they cap out at 200 swordsmen. They have halberdier, but they're missing 2 armors for halberdier. They stop at the first armor upgrade for infantry. That's terrible. D tier. No questions asked. Next up is the Teutons. Teutons. A tier Teutons. You could make an argument for S tier again. These civs are so strong with infantry. You get +1 infantry armor or melee armor on your infantry and cavalry in Castle Age, and another one in Imperial Age. And aside from that, Teutons get full upgrades on halberdier and champions. And they also get Teutonic Knights, which brought them from S tier down to A tier because Teutonic Knights suck that much. Just kidding. Teutonic Knights are actually decent in some situations and could add some value to the Teutons tech tree or the Teutons options in terms of infantry, but I still think it's not enough to push them to S tier. Even though Teutons infantry destroys Goths infantry in that matchup, Goth infantry, they have Huskarl. They're just much more flexible. They've got the spam, they've got the cheapness. It's just really, really solid over there at the Goths. They're doing things right there. So for me, Teutons, although they're very strong, maybe S tier in some lists, I couldn't justify higher than the Goths. For me, Goths are the only S tier civ for infantry. They have to play infantry or they lose. And even when they do play infantry, they also kind of lose. But sometimes they win, and infantry is really strong with them. Next up is the Turks. Turks are going to go to D tier. No pikemen. So they have full upgrade champs, but no pikemen. They cap out at spearmen. That's a disgrace. I have to put them in the D tier because that's just not good enough, honestly. Next up is the Vietnamese. Vietnamese are going to go straight to the C tier. Missing Blast Furnace, but aside from that, I believe they get fully upgraded champs and halbs. Maybe they're missing supplies or squires or arson. Don't yell at me if they are missing that. I'm sorry. I didn't know, but I know they're missing Blast Furnace, and that's enough for a C tier. And finally, the last civ of the day. No! Hold the phone. Sicilians. I forgot about Sicilians. Sicilians are going to go to B tier. Pretend this is Sicilians for a second. B tier, okay? Yeah, it would go to B tier. Oh, bring that ass back. Okay, I'm going to spoil it. Vikings are going to go to A tier, okay? Vikings are going to go to A tier. Sicilians B tier. I'm going to talk about Sicilians first. You get full upgraded champion halb, but you also get donjon and sergeant. So that's pretty good. That's enough to put them B tier, and they're definitely solid. Okay, sorry. Let's talk about Vikings for a second here. Vikings get extra HP on the infantry. They don't have halberdier, but they also get the chieftain tech from the Castle Age, which gives the infantry extra attacking against cavalry, so that kind of replaces it. And they get champions and berserks with extra HP, of course, from their bonus. So for me, Vikings are an A tier civ. Again, can make an argument for S tier, but again, I can't allow that. Fantastic. We have reached the end of the road here with this infantry tier list. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. I've actually had a lot of fun making this, to be honest. I felt like I was cracking a little bit more jokes than usual, keeping it fresh for you guys. But overall, that was my knowledge on infantry civs, and this is how I class them amongst each other. Just to recap here, I couldn't find a reason to have an F tier. Like, there's just no civ that just sucks blatantly for infantry. Usually they have good halbs or they have good champions. So when you mesh both of them together, you get some weaker civs overall, but no civ that is like completely unplayable infantry-wise. But yeah, I think overall Goths reign supreme. They have just the best options overall and the best bonuses, and a lot of bonuses just leaning towards infantry. So for me, they stand out across the board. And other civs that come to mind, like I said, A tier was pretty stacked. But aside from that, we had a pretty nice tier list here. Thanks all for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is actually going to be dropping first time for the subathon. You'll see it on YouTube later. So thanks for watching YouTube, and thanks for watching on Twitch. And do remember, those on Twitch, sub it up. You know, I'm sleeping right now probably when this video is playing. I don't want to wake up to an empty stream. I don't want the timer to run out while I'm asleep. I just lose a lot of my dignity will go with that. You know what I mean? Like, he slept and he woke up and the stream was gone, you know? So sub it up. Don't forget. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care and bye for now.